Hello everyone, this is Dr. Carlos Galera Zarco. Welcome to your module Agile and Hybrid Project Management. This is our first session and we are going to cover key terminology for scheduling. First of all, I would like to introduce an overview of the content that we are going to cover in this session. The first objective is going to be to understand the key scheduling terminology. And the second objective would be to understand the logic that we use to create activity networks, including the identification of predecessors and successors tasks. But first of all, I'd like to provide a little bit of context by clarifying the definition of project management. As you already know, in this module, you will be learning different project management methodologies and different techniques and software to plan, control, and track projects. For this reason, it's very important that you, from the very beginning, have a clear understanding of what project management is. We can define project management as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to different project activities in order to meet the project requirements, in order to achieve the project objectives. So, project management is not a set of techniques. Project management is a discipline which includes a combination of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to achieve the project success. Sometimes people identify project management with planification and the control of the execution task. However, project management involves many different activities. Here you can see that project management involves the understanding of different stakeholder needs. It means the management of the stakeholders. Obviously, project management involves planning and help us to decide what needs to be done in the project, when must be done, by who, and to what quality standards. But project management is also about building our project team, about leading and motivate people, including the coordination of the work done by different people. In addition, project management encompasses the monitoring of the different project stages, the management of the different changes that for sure will arise during a project. And obviously, the ultimate goal of project management is to deliver successful results. A second important concept that helps to understand the contextualization of our topic is the project lifecycle. I'm pretty sure that you are already familiar with this concept, but I would like to refresh the definition. We can define a life cycle as the integrated phases of a project, program, or portfolio that provide a structure for governing the progression of work, the progression of the project. Here you can see a typical model for the project life cycle. These include project initiation, project definition, implementation, and project completion. You must be aware that project planning will be connected with the project definition and the project execution. These two initial phases are clearly connected with the strategic planning. Here you can see a typical model for construction project lifecycle, including the project initiation, planning, execution, and project closure. And in this session, we are going to focus on this second stage, the project planning. There are a number of questions that we need to consider when we start to plan. These questions are where, when, how, what, who, and why. And some of the answers for these questions would be connected with the scope of the project. Other answers, however, would be linked with the way we are going to execute the project. It's important that we keep in mind which are the key factors in project planning, which are basically three factors that are clearly connected with the iron triangle of project management: time, cost, and quality. So, in terms of scheduling, we need to consider time scales, the resources that we have, and the task that we need to complete. Sometimes there is confusion between planning and scheduling. and it's important that you are able to distinguish planning from scheduling. Overall, planning is a more generic term, which includes the preparation of the project scope statement, the definition of the major project deliverables, the assumptions and exclusions made, and the consideration of the different constraints. Planning must be developed in close connection with the documentation generated in the project initiation phase. However, scheduling can be considered as a set of techniques used to develop and present schedules that show when work within a project is planned to be performed. So, scheduling is basically connected with time allocation to the tasks that compose our project plan. The history of project scheduling starts in the ancient world with the construction of the pyramids, or for example the Great Wall in China. In these iconic projects, we have documentation that show how huge the workforce was. But however, we find little documentation, evidence of organized and formal project management. So the formal project management is more recent in history. And we can consider that this starts with the development of the Gantt chart by Henry Gantt in 1910. However, the big development of project management techniques starts in the 1960s with the Sputnik crisis, when the Russian technology showed to be more developed than the technology of the Western countries. So, this fact leads to the development of different techniques like critical evaluation and review technique, of the development of the critical path method, the CPM. The space race pushed the development of project management techniques. NASA projects were pioneers in implementing some project management tools, such as the work breakdown structure, the cost and scheduling tracking, or the configuration management. In 1966, the critical path method was first used in the building industry for the construction of the former World Trade Center, the Twin Towers in New York. So we can see how the development of scheduling techniques had a golden age during the 60s and 70s. Well, here you have a list of key scheduling terms that we are going to explain in this session: scope, work breakdown structure, package project, network diagrams, path, nodes, events, predecessors, and successors activities. The first important concept is the breakdown structure, particularly in projects with a linear life cycle. The scope of the project can be defined through a breakdown structure. You can identify the activities that lead to the completion of the project. These activities will need resources to meet all requirements and benefits. So basically, a breakdown structure is a hierarchical structure by which project elements are decomposed. We can identify different types of breakdown structure. The most important one is the work breakdown structure, but also we can consider the cost breakdown structure, the organizational breakdown structure, of the product breakdown structure. The work breakdown structure can be considered as the key starting point for project planning, because this tool provides a basic hierarchical representation of all the tasks needed to complete the project. We can identify different styles to develop the breakdown structure, like top-down or bottom-up. Likewise, the work structure can be activity-oriented or deliverable-oriented. You can see some examples on how to develop a work breakdown structure. You can see here that the distribution of activity tasks and work packages must be hierarchical and organized. And here you can see a couple of different examples. One of them is following the format of list, while the second one is following the format of a hierarchical tree. First, we need to define the concept of activity, which is basically a task, an operation of process that consume resources, time, cost, etc. The activity is considered the smallest self-contained unit of work in a project. Second important concept is work packages, which are defined as work breakdown structure elements of the project to be assigned to a specific work centers. Work packages are composed of short duration activities that have been defined with a beginning and an end, and they have allocated resources. We can see here that we can allocate packages to specific entities in the project team, in that case to different project managers, by creating our responsibility assignment matrix. When we analyze the relationships between the different project activities or work packages, we are able to provide a logical structure. So we are in the position to develop a project network diagram, which is any schematic display of the logical relationships of activities. In the project network diagram, any sequence of activities defined by the project network logic is defined as a path. In project scheduling, an event is defined as a point when an activity is either started or completed. Usually the events are employed in conjunction with project networks. It's important for you to understand that events don't consume resources, so they don't have time allocation. We define node as any of the defining points of a network. Basically, a node is a junction point. This junction point can be joined to some or all the others by dependency lines, by paths. When we analyze the dependencies between the different activities, we arrive to the definition of predecessors and successors. Predecessors are the activities that must be complete prior to the initiation of a later activity as represented in the network, while successors are activities that cannot start until previous activities have been already completed. So obviously these activities are followed by a predecessor's task. Depending on the way of representation for a project network diagram, we can distinguish between activity on node representation and activity on arrow representation. Basically, this is about how to represent the activity in the network diagram. By considering the task or activity over the node, or considering the task along the arrow, and using in that case the nodes to represent events. We are now arriving to the end of this first session. Before concluding, I would like to summarize the main aspects that we are covering in this initial session. The first one is the contextualization of project scheduling by defining project management and project lifecycle, and understanding the connection of planning with scheduling and with the other project lifecycle phases. The second important takeaway from this session is the definition of key scheduling terminology: work breakdown structure, work package, project network diagram, activity, path, node, event, predecessors, or successors. Finally, now you are in the way to understand and apply these concepts. The key processes in project scheduling encompasses how to build the activity networks. To do that, you need to analyze activities interrelation and estimate task duration. By doing this, we can apply other techniques to calculate a critical path and activity flows. In our live session, Session 2, you will have the opportunity to apply these concepts. And next week, we will be explaining how to calculate the critical path, and take advantages of the concept of float for project scheduling. Many thanks for your attention. I'm looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Goodbye for now.